This is a tutorial demonstration for the building of foam weapons for boffer-style LARPs, reenactments, and the like. This is not the end-all and be-all of weapon building tutorials. Some other methods may work better for you. Some methods may work way better for you. This particular method may not be best suited to all weapon types, and your mileage may vary. That having been said, let us proceed to a basic sword building tutorial. Here are the basic supplies you'll need for this particular method of sword assembly. You will need a core, of course, as well as a roll of blue foam, a roll of duct tape, a roll of double-sided duct tape, a roll of cloth tape, a section of leather for making the handle lacing, and a pair of trouser socks, shown later in the tutorial. All the supplies, except the core and the leather, can usually be found at your local Walmart. Here are the basic tools required for the process. You will need a sharp knife specifically for cutting foam, a box cutter with fresh blade for making small cuts, a straight edge ruler for making nice neat straight lines when needed, especially when cutting the ends of foam strips, a strap cutter with fresh blade, and a screwdriver for adjusting the blade. This image indicates how the blade should be set in the strap cutter for this project. It should be firmly fastened in place at the bottom end, with both parts of the slide clamped close together and set at the bottom of the clamp. This converts the strap cutter for use in cutting through the blue foam. Warning! The blade in the strap cutter is extremely sharp. When using the strap cutter to cut foam, always place the strap cutter blade downwards when not actually using it. Else you may cut yourself and feel quite foolish, as well as getting blood all over the place. The first calibration to make on your strap cutter will be for the two strips that will be first attached to the core. Loosen the clamp on the strap cutter and set it to the width of your core, as shown above. Remember to retighten the clamp once the width has been determined. Use the calibrated strap cutter to cut a thin strip of foam off of your roll of blue foam. Go slowly and do not panic. It may help you to make straighter and more even cuts in the foam if you unroll and re-roll the foam several times before cutting, to remove it from its rolled up state and make it easier to handle. Your completed first strip should look like this. From a standard roll of blue foam, this one strip will be sufficient for any core less than 3 feet in length. For longer cores, these same instructions can be followed, but you will need to cut an additional thin strip, and also more of the wider strips described later on. Apply a strip of double-sided duct tape to your core. This strip should be the full length of the core. The tape does not need to completely enclose the core, as you will only be applying a thin strip of foam to the top and the bottom sides initially. Make sure the tape is firmly attached to the core all over. Remove the plastic strip from the double-sided duct tape attached to the core. Slowly attach the thin foam strip to one end of the core, and carefully press it down onto the tape along the full length of the core. Repeat this procedure for the opposite side of the core as well. It may help you to lay the core on a flat, clean surface with the exposed edge of the core facing downward, then apply the foam to first one side and then the other. This will help to ensure a clean, flat profile for the foam on the core, hereafter referred to as the paddle. Now you will be marking the paddle for your hand grip. The image shows the method for a one-handed sword. Measure in 2 inches from one end of the pommel, mark the foam there, a marker or a sliver of loose duct tape will do, then place your hand on the paddle as shown and mark the other end of the grip area. If you are making a sword with more grip area on the handle, adjust your markings accordingly. This image shows the paddle with markings for the hand grip for a one-handed sword. Note that the foam strips are left in place on the area designated for the grip. More on that later. Next, apply a layer of double-sided duct tape to the paddle as shown. Begin with the blade end, starting at the marking for the top of the hand grip, and apply the tape all the way to the end of the paddle, over the top, and back along the other side of the paddle to the level of the top of the hand grip. Cut off the tape here, and use the same method to cover over the pommel end of the paddle. Be sure to press the tape very firmly into the foam at all points along the paddle. Calibrate the strap cutter as with the thin strip first cut. The strap cutter should be set to the width of the wider side of the paddle, as shown. Again, remember to be very careful with the strap cutter, especially the blade. Cut the foam strip as shown before. Again, for cores of under 3 feet of length, a single strip from the roll of blue foam should be sufficient for this stage. Remove the plastic cover from the double-sided tape on the paddle. Do this for only one side at a time to avoid sticking your entire project to your working surface. Apply the strip of foam to the end of the core on one side, and press it firmly onto the paddle all the way down to the top of the hand grip. Carefully cut the foam strip off at this point, and repeat the process for the pommel end and then the blade and pommel ends on the other side. The above image shows the pommel end of the paddle, now referred to as the box. Apply a layer of double-sided duct tape to the box, both blade and pommel ends. The tape should cover over the thin strips of foam first applied. This method of construction ensures that the side of the resulting weapon blade has a broader layer of foam covering and enclosing it, providing more durability and a longer-lasting weapon. Calibrate the strap cutter again, setting it to the width of the box on the sides with the double-sided tape over them. Cut a pair of foam strips to that width. From one of the strips just cut, slice off a small square of foam. Peel the plastic coating off the double-sided duct tape on one side of the box, all the way to the end and just beyond. Apply the square of foam previously cut to the end of the box. This begins the process of enclosing and covering the end of the core. Cut a short strip of double-sided duct tape and apply it over the end of the square. The ends of the strip should extend at least an inch beyond the bottom of the foam square. Take the plastic covering attached to the larger length of double-sided duct tape and reapply it to the tape up to the end of the box as shown. Repeat this entire process on the pommel end as well. Apply one of the two strips of foam from earlier to the box. Begin at the top of the hand grip and apply the foam all the way to the tip, then peel the plastic covering from the double-sided tape on the other side and apply the foam to that side as well. If you're not too worried about conserving foam, you can just keep going with this process right onto the pommel end, as shown in the above image. To conserve foam, cut the strip off at the top of the hand grip and reapply it onto the pommel end, and continue the process. This step is especially useful on weapons with longer handles. This image shows what the pommel end and part of the blade above the hand grip should look like once the foam is applied. Note the square of foam that has been applied to the pommel end of the box. From your leftover foam, cut a small rectangle about the length of the ends of the blade and pommel ends. Cut the ends of the rectangle at about a 45-degree angle. Apply another layer of double-sided duct tape to the blade and remove the covering from one side, as done in previous steps. Take the rectangle of foam from the previous step and apply it to the tip of the blade. Cut and apply another short strip of double-sided duct tape to the top of the rectangle, as done with the square of foam from the earlier step. Apply your remaining long strip of foam to the blade as in previous steps. This last layer of foam is not necessary for the pommel as well, unless you desire a larger and more circular shaped pommel. This is what the weapon should look like now, more or less. The core now has 3 layers of foam, 1.5 inches, covering it on the striking surface, and 4 layers of foam, 2 inches, in an interlock structure covering the tip. The interlocked tip makes that end of the weapon stronger and more resistant to shearing off at the side. Apply a layer of good old-fashioned duct tape to the side of the blade. You will probably need to use 2 strips of tape for this, overlapping them in the middle. Trim the extra tape off of the end, following the curve of the tip as shown in the above image. Repeat the tape covering procedure for the pommel end as well. Fold the ends of the tape down towards the core. Using a couple of loose strips of duct tape, press down and secure the corner ends of the pommel near the hand grip. Also cover over the visible ends of foam at the top of the hand grip. Refer to the above image for further detail. Your weapon should now look about like this. Using the cloth tape, cover over the pommel end of the weapon, and then wrap the tape around the exposed foam on the hand grip. Do not pull the tape too tight, but make sure that it is firmly secured to the foam. To make the super fancy wrapped handle for your weapon, you will need to make or obtain some leather lace. This image shows a Tandy lace maker and a scrap section of 6 to 8 ounce bull hide. You will need at least 16 feet of lace for a one-handed grip, and perhaps much longer for handles of greater length. Boom! Now you have leather lace. Find the midpoint of your length of leather lacing. Drape this over the handle of the weapon, just at the base of the blade end of the hand grip. Tie a simple overhand knot, drawing it shut so that the midpoint of the lacing is still where it should be. Slide the knot right up against the foam of the blade end and pull it tight, cinching it into the foam underneath the cloth tape. Do not pull the lacing too tightly, as you may break it, but pull it tight enough that it sinks into the foam and becomes immobile. Once you have firmly seated your initial knot, the best method of continuing will be to place the blade of your weapon between your legs and hold it there while tying knots. Rotate the sword 180 degrees after each knot is tied, and try to keep the overlap of each knot in line with the previous ones and as close together as possible. Note how the finished knots have compressed the foam of the handle inwards, creating a much rounder shape. Continue tying knots and rotating the weapon until you get to the pommel end. Once the knots are fairly against the base of the pommel, tie off the remaining lace with a double knot and trim off the ends. Leaving a few inches dangling loose provides a more signature look to the handle. Now you are ready to cover the weapon. For a uniform look and expediency, a pair of simple, plain black trouser socks can be used as a convenient cover for blades of under 2.5 feet in length. Simply pull the socks, one at a time, over the length of the blade. Pull them on tight, but not so tight that the seams stretch out. For blades at the longer end of what can be covered by the socks, you may need to take your box cutter and carefully cut the thread holding the top part of the sock to itself. This releases the folded over section at the top of the socks and allows for a little extra coverage length. Using some leftover lace, secure and tie the ends of the socks using a double knot. It may help to sink the first knot into the space between the blade foam and the start of the handle wrapping. Trim off the ends of the lacing, and trim off or roll up the excess ends of the socks. Your weapon is complete. Take it outside and swing it over your head. Now you can fight anything.